Thanks, Rita. Coming up tonight on BBC London, the massive mound of illegally dumped waste in East London. Locals brace themselves for fire season, waiting for a court to decide whether it's officially contaminated.
It's an absolute rancid, horrible smell, and it just burns your throat. It's gone on too long and it feels as though we're not being listened to.
Also on the programme, after 15-year-old Eliane Andam's killer was jailed for life over murder at a bus stop in Croydon, what can be done to protect other teenagers from violence? Plus,
join me in Ealing, where you are invited to pick up a spade and one of 5,000 saplings and plant trees for the next generation.
And the Crystal Palace fan whose music dreams came true after going viral. Good evening and welcome to the programme. First tonight, the story of a large area of land in East London that for years has been spontaneously catching on fire. Tons of illegally dumped toxic waste is buried under Arnold's Field on Launders Lane in Rainham. And as it decomposes, it smoulders beneath the surface. When the weather gets warmer, fires break out and filthy smoke affects residents. Next week, a court hearing will consider whether the privately owned land should be officially designated as contaminated, which could finally force a massive clean-up. Anna O'Neill reports.
It says there it's poor. And even, oh gosh, it's getting to me as I've come out here. So can we go back in?
Clean air is in short supply in Rainham, and fire season hasn't even started yet.
I've got COPD and emphysema, which obviously cause breathing problems. I get very breathless at doing the slightest of things. And today I've woke up very breathless and we've checked the air quality and it's not good.
When fires spontaneously break out on Arnold's Fields off Launders Lane a mile away, as they do now all through the summer season, Pauline starts to suffer.
It's an absolute rancid, horrible smell, and it just burns your throat. It's gone on too long and it feels as though we're not being listened to. It's just pass the buck, and no one can say sorry, yeah, let's see if we can get this sorted. And what's got everyone up in arms at the moment is everyone's watched that Netflix programme, Toxic Town.
Then drink, then smoke. Sometimes children are just born different.
Toxic Town is a TV programme about a group of women in Corby who took action against a toxic site, and it seems to mirror what is happening here. Toxic waste was dumped on Arnold's Field for years. The field's previous owner, John Riley, was jailed in 2011 for 12 years for drugs and guns offences, including running an underground cannabis farm on the site. Since then, the site has changed hands and is the subject of a High Court hearing next week to determine whether it can be legally defined as contaminated.
The fires go underground, so one day you can be spraying water on the ground over there, the next day it'll be 400 or 500 feet away and all over the site.
Sean Newton is part of the Launders Lane Crisis Group and believes local people's health is being affected by the site.
You can't ignore the fact that there are people with respiratory illnesses all around Rainham downwind of these fires.
This woman has family in the area.
I grew up here and in the last 5 years the fires have been particularly bad. In the summer you get huge flames and thick black toxic smoke that covers the entire area, and it's really affecting the health of all the residents.
She did not want to be seen on camera because, she says, some residents have been threatened in the past for talking about Arnold's Fields.
There's other people been told there's a bullet waiting for you. Sympathy cards, unsigned sympathy cards sent to their home addresses, and what do you make of that when they haven't had a bereavement or anything? It's just trying to intimidate people to stop digging.
Arnold's owner Jerry O'Donovan describes himself as a quiet family man and said he's been threatened too. He said he's had lorries burnt out in his yard with no explanation and said he wanted to improve the site for the local community and for his business. He said doing so would bring jobs to the area and stop the fires.
It's really in the hands of the landowner, because he obviously needs to put in a plan application in order for the council to consider what he's proposing for the site. That's obviously one particular solution. The other solution is that another organisation like the GLA, the Mayor of London or central government step in and provide the funding to completely cleanse the land.
Next week's High Court ruling might bring more clarity. Anna O'Neill, BBC London.
Time for a quick look at some of the day's other news now. And a former Met Police officer has appeared at the Old Bailey via video link from prison, accused of multiple sex attacks on a woman and a teenage girl. David Carrick, who's 50, had previously denied 9 charges. He's due to stand trial in November. The water regulator has warned it could cost taxpayers billions if Thames Water runs out of money. Ofwat and the government are keen to avoid a form of nationalisation, which is likely to happen within weeks if the company can't secure an emergency £3 billion loan to buy it time to restructure its crippling debts and attract new investment. The appeal court's currently considering whether to approve the loan. Now, the cousin of 15-year-old Eliane Andam, who was murdered in Croydon on her way to school, has warned there are many more boys like her killer who are angry and lost. Yesterday, Hassan Sentamou, who was 17 when he repeatedly stabbed Eliane, was jailed for life with a minimum term of 23 years. But her family have said the sentence was not tough enough. So, what can be done to protect other teenagers from violence? Well, in a moment, I'll be speaking to 2 guests who both work with young people. But first, to our Home Affairs correspondent, Sonia Jessup. Sonia.
Thanks, Victoria. Eliane's mother, Dorcas Andam, told the court yesterday that the question that will forever haunt her is why? Why did a 17-year-old boy decide to take a knife to meet her 15-year-old daughter and her friends and repeatedly stab her? Sentamou had admitted killing Eliane but denied it was murder, saying he had diminished responsibility because of his autism. The jury rejected that defence and found him guilty. They heard he'd wanted vengeance. He'd acted with white-hot anger after the girls, including his ex, had mocked him and thrown water over him the day before the attack. They were also told that Sentamou had a history of aggression towards other children and had experienced violence and neglect himself. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 23 years, a sentence that Eliane's family said was not tough enough. They criticised the legal system, saying they felt abandoned and unheard. They said that compassion, rehabilitation, needs to be balanced with consequences. Eliane's cousin, Denzel Larby, said that Sentamou had committed a monstrous, evil act. But he also told me that he'd been thinking about what could maybe have made a difference.
What would have happened if maybe another male just took him by the hands and really invested in him and mentored him? I really wonder if maybe my cousin would still be here. Around Croydon, there are many Hassans just walking around Croydon. Young boys who are angry, young boys who are lost, young boys that want to be listened to. But I do believe there are great people in our community, great organisations who are in place that can really help and support these young people.
Well, I'm pleased to say I'm joined now by Ben Hurst from Beyond Equality, a charity that works with young men, talking to them about masculinity and violence against women and girls, and Alex McLean from One Step Mentoring. Well, thank you very much, both of you, first of all, for coming in. Ben, to you first of all, we heard from Denzel Larby there saying there are many angry boys like Eliane's killer walking around Croydon. Is that your experience? And if so, why is that the case?
I mean, I think one of the issues here is that for men and for boys, one of the only emotions that's accessible for them is anger. I think there are loads of boys who are angry. I think there are loads of boys who are happy. I think there are loads of boys who are sad. I think there's a range of emotions, and part of the issue here is maybe the emotional illiteracy that leads to boys not being able to express what it is that they're feeling in healthy and constructive ways. And so sometimes we see outpourings of all of that emotion in ways that's very harmful to the boys themselves, to their communities, to their peers, and to young women like this.
And we'll talk in a minute about what can be done about that. But do you feel like pressure has sort of built, things have really significantly changed in the last sort of 10, 15 years? I mean, what's behind this, do you think?
Yeah, I think, you know, these ideas and these ideologies that exist in our culture of men being strong, of men being dominant, of men being leaders have always been there. And in some ways that's a blessing, in some ways it's a curse. It's for lots of young people a lot of pressure. But I think that's compounded by the internet age and by the access that boys are having to online content. We've seen a rise in content coming from the manosphere, lots of stuff around people like Andrew Tate who are talking about things that are very harmful and normalising lots of these forms of violence in real time.
Alex, let's pick up on a couple of those things, those points with you. What would you say, though, first of all, is the impact of cases like Eliane, rare as it is? Is it a sort of wake-up call for young people, or actually is it more creating a greater sense of fear and therefore perhaps anger, frustration?
I think, if I'm honest, a lot of people are desensitised. I think the level of trauma that young people are carrying these days is through the roofs because the exposure is happening much, much earlier. But the good news is with that is that if the exposure is happening earlier, so can the intervention. And I think part of the work that I get the privilege of doing is like Ben was touching on, teaching some of these young boys that, you know, one chapter doesn't define the whole book. And they may have been taught throughout most of their life that anger is the only way for them to express themselves. You know, we have these harmful narratives, men don't cry and don't be soft. And all these things are, what they're doing is building a pent-up energy in them that only manifests in one way. But that's just the headline. I think we need to go to more of the root and look at, like Ben said, teaching some of these boys emotional literacy and helping them to understand that it's a healthy way of expressing their emotions that can happen in a variety of ways.
So when you see that investment, that mentoring, what sort of differences do you notice in these angry young people?
I think mainly it's them seeing that they have a purpose, them realising that they have potential. Like Ben said, a lot of young boys particularly don't feel heard. They feel misunderstood. I used to be one of them. I actually got kicked out of school for emotional regulation issues, actually. But it was one of my teachers at school that showed me that I was actually a leader, that I had influence, and that I had something worthwhile contributing to the world that changed my whole mindset.
So, and how do you go about that? What works?
Well, I would say a lot of questions. You know, in schools, we run a range of different programs. So with boys from 12 years up, we run 3 modules. So the first one is on masculinity, gender stereotypes, gender norms, expectations. The second one is on healthy relationships, so looking at how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to each other. And then the third one is about gender-based violence. But I think actually that pathway is so important, that we're going into these rooms and asking the boys questions about their lives, asking them about who they are, about how they feel, helping them to build that emotional literacy, that vocabulary to express themselves before we get into the point of really trying to tell them how they're meant to be behaving. And I think one of the big misconceptions here is that actually policing behaviour is the solution to the problem, when really it's the attitudes and the beliefs that underpin those behaviours that are causing the harm. So interrogating that and giving boys space to ask questions and to be critical about that kind of stuff is crucial.
OK, I wish we could talk more about this, but we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for coming in this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you can watch our documentary into the killing of the teenager Eliane Andam in full on the BBC iPlayer. In it, we hear from Eliane's loved ones, her teachers and the detective who brought her killer to justice. Search for the bus stop murder. That's on the iPlayer now. Now, if you've used the Elizabeth line stations, you may have noticed the ghostly outlines on the walls behind platform benches. They're from passengers leaving behind grease and dirt marks. And now Transport for London has found a colourful way of dealing with them. Tom Edwards can explain.
This is where commuters have left their mark on the Elizabeth line. Some people call them ghost marks, and they've appeared at some central London stations, particularly around the seating. About 800,000 passengers a day are now using the Elizabeth line, and that is having an impact on this. It's called glass fibre reinforced concrete, particularly around the seats. Now, TfL did try and wash it, but now they think they've come up with a better solution. Transport for London has introduced these moquette-inspired covers around the seats.
This carries over from the moquette to represent the Elizabeth line, but also you'll see the Circle line, the Hammersmith and City, the Metropolitan, the Northern. So it's all blended into these rather colourful vinyls that serve a purpose too.
And do you think these ruin the aesthetic of the whole Elizabeth line, having these stuck onto the wall?
I think these actually add to the overall aesthetic of the Elizabeth line. People love the clear, light, relatively quiet platforms. These add just that bit of colour and also differentiate and highlight the priority seating as well.
4 central London stations will now get the new designs. Tom Edwards, BBC London.
Now, London is a pretty green city, from our street trees to our parks. But what about forests? Well, in part of West London, one council has joined up with a charity to plant a new forest, which will cover 3 acres, made up of some 5,000 native trees. Matt Graveling has been along as local residents in Ealing get planting.
It's said that society grows great when people plant trees whose shade they will never sit in. If that's true, then Ealing's community is stronger than ever.
Planting trees is food for the soul. It's really necessary for the planet at the moment. It's great for cities. It helps improve biodiversity. It lowers temperature, improves air quality, and forests are just great places to be.
Once a golf course, Pear Tree Park is now a place for the public. But in a bid to boost biodiversity, the council is working alongside 2 charities.
So we've got hazels, we've got oaks, we've got willows, we've got hawthorn, blackthorn, wild cherry. So these have all been grown from local seeds. So the provenance is local as well. So they're going to be suited to the climate here.
But these trees won't plant themselves. So companies and local residents, young and old, have been lending a hand.
It's so nice to give something back, and especially with my little one, to teach her all the best things and take the bad habits away, just to make sure that the next generation is in the right place.
So the goal is to plant 5,000 of these saplings throughout the month of March, and everyone is invited to get involved.
At the moment this is open grassland, which actually isn't great for biodiversity. We're trying to increase our tree canopy cover. That'll be crucial if we're getting a warmer climate to provide more shade and cooling effect. Residents can come down over the next few Saturdays to take part, to contribute, to see their tree grow, so they can be part of the development of a green new space.
And that's exactly what this corporate team did. A company better known for driving than digging, today delivering a better tomorrow.
I may never benefit from that particular tree, but it feels really good to be part of the bigger picture through that one tree.
Matt Graveling, BBC London.
Lots more to come tonight, including the Crystal Palace fan whose music dreams came true after going viral. Football now, and the first major trophy of the season is available tomorrow lunchtime as Chelsea meet Manchester City in the Women's League Cup final at Pride Park in Derby. Chelsea are still yet to lose a game in any competition this season, which has led to talk that they could go on to become the first team in the Women's Super League era to win the quadruple. Chris Slegg has been to meet the players.
3 women with 1 goal to help Chelsea win 4 trophies.
Aggie Beaver-Jones, forward. My name is Jorgen Usken, and midfielder.
Katarina Macario, and I'm a midfielder and forward.
This could be the first trophy of a quadruple. Is that on your minds at all?
I think, yeah, it's always on our minds. Being at Chelsea, we want to win as many trophies as possible, but yeah, it's the first time to potentially win the silverware, and obviously it's a trophy we've not won for the last few years, and we want to bring it back home now.
Only Arsenal have won all 4 major trophies in the same season, and that was before the WSL era.
Tomorrow's League Cup final is the first of 4 meetings between Chelsea and Manchester City in 12 days, with the Champions League quarter-finals and a league match to come.
What's the toughest thing for you when you take on Manchester City? Because they're obviously, like Chelsea, a really top side.
Yeah, they're a very high-quality team. We know them very well. It will be an interesting game, and especially because we played them 4 times in a row. So it will be, it will be a challenge for the creative minds that come from the coaches, and to see how they want to attack each team.
Chelsea were beaten in last year's League Cup final, and for all their domestic dominance, have actually lost the last 3 in a row.
We want to win, so we want to win this final, and we want to win the first trophy this season. I think we started a good season, so we are in a good rhythm and we want to win.
Long-time Chelsea manager Emma Hayes left last summer having lifted 16 trophies. But new boss Sonia Bonpastor is still unbeaten and has won 25 of her 27 games in charge.
They're both legends, each in their own right. And yeah, I mean, Emma had left Chelsea with a tremendous legacy, and so it's been nice to have someone carry that on.
What do days like this, cup finals, mean to your family?
Yeah, I think it means everything. I think obviously it's the hard work's paid off, but you've still got that final step to go. Hopefully we'll be taking that trophy home.
If there's victory to celebrate tomorrow, then the quest for the quad is truly on. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Well, there's also silverware at stake on Sunday in the Premiership Women's Rugby Final. Saracens take on reigning champions Gloucester Hartpury, who are attempting to win the title for the 3rd year in a row. Saris, though, have home advantage with the game taking place at the StoneX Stadium in Barnet. Kick-off is at 3 p.m. on Sunday. Now, staying with sport, one South London stadium has hosted a different sort of a fixture. Singer and Crystal Palace superfan James Vickers made a special appearance at Selhurst Park, not to play the game, but to launch his 2nd album. He has secured a record deal after going viral online. It's even more impressive as the Croydon-born singer became partially deaf as a child. Layla Hayes has been to meet him.
Singing at Selhurst Park. For Crystal Palace fan James Vickery, it's a lifelong dream.
It's overwhelming, I'll be completely honest. Like this is a dream come true. Like it was very apparent early on that I was not going to be a professional footballer. I love the game and I'll always watch it, but I was never going to be good enough to be a professional footballer. But I got my way here through the love of music, and I didn't think that would ever be possible.
James's singing career is all the more remarkable because at the age of 8 he was diagnosed with a benign tumour and had to have surgery, leaving him deaf in one ear.
Things just take me longer, like mixing music takes me longer. Like I can't have an earphone in on this side and it works. I have to have everything sent to me mono on stage. There's certain things, but like everyone around me has been so great and accommodating for that.
I'll go wash you down like a glass of wine. His breakthrough performance on YouTube has now had nearly 40 million views.
It's quite old now, but like even still I get people coming up to me being like, oh, like I conceived my son to that song and stuff. But it's like people love to come up to me and tell me that like, oh, that song was like meant so much to me and stuff. And the song means so much to people and it had such a moment.
James now has his name plastered all over the South London Stadium.
Seeing my name up in lights I almost can't look at it. I almost can't look at it because it's like looking in the mirror almost. But it's a proud moment.
Every corner of your body. Now on his 2nd album, James has one goal left, a sellout gig at Selhurst Park. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
They can hear us in the hotel. What an amazing story. Now, if you were up very early this morning, you may have seen the lunar eclipse. Well, some London weather watchers did and sent in these pictures from Canary Wharf, Surrey Quays and Reading. The eclipse, which was visible just before dawn, happens when the Earth moves directly between the moon and the sun. Well, it is now time for a look at the weather, and Helen Willis is here. Hi there.
Hi, Victoria. I've got one from Bromley here, as you can see. It was a fine evening for viewing, and you might well see the full moon, not the eclipse, but the full moon again through this evening and overnight. This was the beautiful view here, looking down the Thames this afternoon. A little bit of patchy cloud above St Paul's. The weekend, very similar sort of weather picture, but it looks like we'll see more dry weather, but still some frosty nights. This is the latest satellite pictures you can see here. There's quite a bit of lumpy cloud around, still a few showers in the picture as we head through the overnight period, mostly down towards Kent. Quite a keen breeze here. Could still be a little bit wintry over the hills, but for many, the skies are clearing. Despite that keen breeze, that means that we will see another frost around, but there should be some views of that full moon. Then as we go through tomorrow, 1 or 2 showers still lingering. We've got a keen breeze, quite a fresh breeze actually, making it feel a little bit chillier across southern and eastern areas. Further away from that, I think we'll see temperatures up to about 9. So we're slowly getting a little bit of recovery in temperature by day this weekend. Of course, the March sunshine increasing in strength all the time. And the difference this weekend is that we're cutting off that shower feed with this high pressure moving in. So hopefully by Sunday, fewer showers, in fact, fewer tomorrow anyway, compared with recent days. So another frosty start on Sunday morning, most definitely. A little bit of mist and fog around both tomorrow morning and Sunday before the cloud tends to build up. Sunday at the moment looking like a relatively quite cloudy afternoon. Should be dry and bright, a little bit of sunshine. We might squeeze a 10 on Sunday somewhere, but we're keeping that high pressure rather into next week, but we're starting to pull in some drier air, which means we'll hopefully see a few more breaks in the cloud into Monday and into Tuesday, and eventually we should see a shift round in wind direction as well to more of a southerly. And if that happens, middle week onwards, we'll see temperatures rising into the high teens, well, mid to high teens anyway. Not quite as close to 20 as last weekend, but still getting a little bit milder. But with it, there's some rain potentially on the way as well, but probably not until the end of the week and into next weekend. So it is looking drier this weekend, just 1 or 2 showers, but still frosty nights and still quite chilly in the breeze. Victoria.
Good news. Thanks very much indeed. Tonight's main news headlines now. An intensive diplomatic effort to bring about a ceasefire in Ukraine has produced mixed reactions. President Trump called talks with Russia good and productive, but Russia's President Putin said the situation seemed to be moving but was complicated. Ukraine's President Zelensky described Russia's response as manipulative. And residents in East London, where there is a massive mound of illegally dumped waste, are bracing themselves for fire season. Next week, a court will decide whether it is officially contaminated. And that's about it from me. I'll be here later with our 10:30 programme. There's all the day's news on our website, of course, and the BBC News app as well. But for now, from all of us here, do enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.